We have a lot of books to talk about. Hello friends, welcome back to another book video. You'll have to excuse my voice because I am coming to the end of being sick, and for some reason I now sound worse than I feel. When I was in like the depths of being unwell, I didn't sound sick even though I felt like death. And now I sound sick, but I actually feel fine. So today I am doing the, what did she call it? Mid-year book tag. I'm doing the questions that Sarah Corelli did. Sarah, I get confused, but I'm gonna call her Sarah. She did a book tag video. I will tag her video down below. So I'm going to answer the same questions that she did, and we're gonna talk about my favorite books this year, basically. I have read a lot of books this year. For me, I am on 42 books, which is like wild, because last year when I first got back into reading, well, I got back into reading at the end of 2021, and I read like, I don't know, 8 or 9 books like from October to the end of the year. And then last year I read 38 or 39 books, and this year I'm already on 42 and my goal is 50. So I'm feeling very proud of myself and I'm having the best time reading. And you may wonder how a mum of 2 very small children is getting so much time to read, but let me tell you, that baby of mine is up a lot in the night, so my Kindle is getting its money's worth. So the first question is the best book you have read so far this year, and I think I would have to go with Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. Now this is the 4th book in the Magnolia Parks universe, and there's something about Daisy that I just love. And like I didn't love the first book. I think I've mentioned this before on my channel. It took me a little while to sort of adapt to Jessa Hastings' writing. It's like nothing I've ever read before, but by the time I got to this book I was like so hooked. I just love Daisy. I love Christian. I just love their whole story, and this second book I literally just couldn't put down. And yeah, it was just easily my favorite by a fair bit. So I think this is my favorite book I've read this year, which is crazy because when I read the first Magnolia Parks book I wasn't sure if I was going to continue the series or not. I enjoyed it a lot by the end, but I was like, oh, like I'm not sure. And then I read Daisy Hates, like the first one, and I was like, oh, here we go. So yeah, honestly, I have really loved this. And yeah, I think that's my favorite book I've read this year so far, which is crazy and very unexpected. The second question is the best sequel you have read so far in 2023, and this I would have to give to Next of Kin and Next of You by Hannah Bonham Young. I'll put the pictures up here because I do not have a physical copy yet, but they are on Kindle Unlimited, which is where I read them. I do want to buy the physical copies because, as I said, they're my favorite sequel this year. I just fell in love with the way that Hannah Bonham Young writes characters and writes stories. She does such a good job at making just like, I don't even know how to explain it, but like in one of her stories, one of them's deaf, and there's a transgender girl in the storyline, but it's like she just adds all of these people from different walks of life into a story so naturally and so normal, which we don't see in writing very often. I feel like everyone is quite just like pretty and proper and normal and have no issues other than maybe some like trauma, but like she writes about disabilities really well, and single parenting and the foster system, and just so many important things that should be more normalized in books. She manages to just slide right in there, and I just love that so much. So if I haven't convinced you already to read these books, I just highly recommend Next of Kin. That it's about a girl and she gets a phone call from Social Security, and it's basically or Child Protection, and they're like, hey, can you come to the hospital? Your mum is having a baby, but she didn't know she was pregnant, and she has drank a lot in this pregnancy because she didn't know. Her and her mum have a very toxic relationship. They haven't really spoken much in the last like however many years, and she was sort of had to bring herself up. And so just like randomly in her mid-20s, she's now caring for this sister of hers, and because it's also last minute, she doesn't really have the financial, like the proof financially to show social services that she can look after this child. But her mum has said like, I want you to have her, I want you to take care of her. And she was like, well, I don't really have a choice. I'm not going to let this kid end up in the foster system and have a terrible life. Like, she's my sister, I need to look after her. And so she moves into this house, and she ends up being in this program. I think it was called Team Up or something like that. And basically she ends up living with someone else who is in a similar situation, and he is trying to get like parental rights over his younger brother, where there's a big age gap, and his younger brother is then deaf. And she just writes in this deaf brother so well. Like, I don't know, it's just amazing. And yeah, they end up living together, and they're sort of like, okay, this is a crappy situation, let's just keep our distance, we'll do our own thing, whatever. And obviously things go from there. And then yeah, it honestly is just amazing. And then her roommates in the story, one of them who is transgender and one of them who is very fluent in her sexuality, and then the second story is about her love story. So I just loved it, and it was amazing, and both the books I just devoured, and I just love the way that Hannah Bonham Young writes, and I just cannot recommend enough. I just rambled so long for that second question. A new release you haven't read yet but want to. A new release I haven't read yet. Fourth Wing. I have started it, but I feel like it's all over the internet. Everyone, my TikTok is like obsessed with Fourth Wing, and so I just need to read it. I need to get through it. I had a physical copy, and so I feel like that slowed me down a bit, so I've now bought it on Kindle, and I'm planning to smash through because I'm loving it, but I need to know, you know? My biggest surprise. I think my biggest surprise would have to go to Akama. I read this, it took me a little while to get through. She's a chunky gal, and I have not read much fantasy before, so it took me a little while because I have to reread things and actually listen to a bit of it on audio because I found that a little bit easier. But this book was amazing. I loved it. I think after reading Akata, I was a bit unsure on how the rest of the series was going to go. It wasn't an amazing book. Like, the last 30 pages were incredible, but before that it was very slow, and so I was a bit nervous going in. But this really did blow me away. I think these would make such good movies. Like, I can just picture everything so clearly, and I just think it would be so good. But this was definitely a big surprise for me. I know it's like all over the internet. Everyone in the world has read the Akata series, but this book specifically was a big surprise to me that I really loved it in the end. New favourite author, either a debut or new to you. Now, I think I have two because I don't want to repeat myself too much, but Hannah Bonham Young, highly recommend. If you have not read her books, read them. She's amazing. Love her to bits. Trying to not just repeat myself. Emily Henry is my next favourite new author. Like, obviously she's not new to the book world, but she's new to me because I hadn't read any of her books before. I've read Happy Place and Beach Read, and I'm obsessed with her. So yeah, if you haven't read Emily Henry books, I'll be very surprised because she's a very popular author. Especially Happy Place has gotten so much hype. Like, wow, everyone is obsessed with Happy Place, which I also am obsessed with Happy Place. And so I'm gonna go through the rest of her backlist. It's an aim of mine, like, for the rest of the year, is to finish all of her books. And yeah, I just highly recommend Emily Henry. Her books are, Rachel Catherine always says they're like literary fiction. Yeah, a literary fiction with romance, which I completely agree. Like, her books are so much more than a romance book, and I just love her. So I'm gonna devour more of her books this year. Newest fictional crush. I didn't think about this one very much before I came into this. Logan Kendrick from the Lark Cove series by Devney Perry. I have read 5 of the Lark Cove books, I think 3. I'm on my 4th and I've nearly finished it, and I think there's 4 and a novella, maybe, something like that. But Logan Kendrick from Tattered, oh my gosh, I loved him. He just, I can't even explain how much I love him. He's just beautiful in so many ways, and I loved that book for starters. I've loved the series, and yeah, he holds a very special place in my heart. A book that made me cry was One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you have not read this book, I will be shocked because I feel like I'm the last person in the world to read it, but also I don't know why I held off from reading it for so long because I knew I was going to love it. So if you don't know what this is about, I'll be very shocked, but it is about a girl called Emma, and she basically falls in love as a teenager. She has this amazing romance, gets married to this guy Jesse, who she like went to high school with. They fall madly in love, they travel, they get married, they have a beautiful love story. And then he gets on a plane and is pronounced dead because he goes missing or he ends up like on a helicopter. He goes away for work and never comes back, and so she basically has to mourn this like 10-year relationship and the love of her life, and you know, just like move on with life. And then she eventually picks herself up and falls back in love. She has to say goodbye to her first love and ends up falling in love again, and she finds this beautiful guy Sam, and they actually went to high school together too, or like they used to work together back when she was in high school, and they just fall in love, and it's so beautiful. And then Jessie calls one day and is like, hey, I'm actually alive, and she then has to break someone's heart basically, and it's the most heart-wrenching, horrendous story ever, and it's so beautiful but it's so horrible. And it was just, yeah, really interesting. And the whole time it's like, oh, who's she gonna pick? Because she has like her high school lover, the person she thought she was going to spend forever with, and then he was dead and she had to mourn him and say goodbye, and then she's found this new person and she's been lucky enough to fall in love again, and it's just a wild time and it's really beautiful, and I cried so much. Hayden was like, are you okay? Whilst I was literally ugly crying. So, but highly recommend. 5-star. Loved this. Book that made you happy. Flawless, actually, by Elsie Silver, made me very happy. I loved that story. I am only just reading the second Chestnut Springs book now, but I loved that book. I loved the setting. Very McLeod's daughter. It was very country, which I just kind of love in a book. I don't know why, but I loved the cowboy setting, and I just thought it was so fun, and it just gave me McLeod's daughter vibes, which we love, and yeah, I found it really good. So, Flawless by Elsie Silver, which I feel like everyone and their dog has read this year. So, most beautiful books you have bought this year or received. And I would have to say that Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide From the Light, is that what it's called? These books are just so stunning. I just love them. Like, are you kidding? And like, they've got little gold flecks on them. And I just think they're so simple, so stunning. Like oh my goodness. I just think they're so stunning. Like, I literally bought this one whilst reading it on my Kindle because I just wanted the cover, because I just thought it was so beautiful, and I just think they look so nice next to each other, and they'll look so nice when the third one comes out, and I just love. Also, all of the Magnolia Parks books, I don't have them all here, they're on my bookshelf, but like the girl who does Jessa Hastings illustrations, like, and like designs these, is just like no other. They're just so cool. Wow, love. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, honestly, this list is always quite long, but there are a lot of books on my TBR for the rest of the year. I'm not gonna lie. These, to start with. I have started A Court of Wings and Ruin, and we'll start, obviously then I will read them all eventually. It is an aim of mine to read them this year. But yeah, so next is A Court of Wings and Ruins, and as far as the ACOTAR series go, I definitely want to get through these, but they're just chunky and they're very intimidating, and I really am enjoying them, but I feel like I read them slowly because whilst reading a fantasy book, I also need to read a small town romance at the same time. So, I don't know. Yeah. I also want to read, finish Addicted for now and get on to the next books in the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. I'm like halfway through this book and I'm just reading it really slowly. It's just, there's not that much happening, but I really want to get to Connor and Rose's story, so I'm like, I need to just finish this one and then read the rest of the series. Ziggy, get down. Someone's walking past my house, so now the dog thinks he has to go crazy. But yeah, so the rest of the Addicted Calloway Sister series is very high on my list, as well as finishing Fourth Wing, as I mentioned before. And I also feel like I just want to add in an extra question with like, what's my favorite series this year? Because it said like your favorite sequel, but my favorite series this year, I have a couple. I'm not gonna lie. I have absolutely love Edens by Devney Perry, because I read 3 of the books last year and I've read 2 this year, the 2 that have come out this year, Jasper Vale and Crimson River, I just read as well, and oh my gosh, I just love the Edens. I love them. I love them. It's a small town romance series, interconnecting stories. The small town basically was founded by this family, the Edens. There are 6 kids and they're all adults, like adult children, adult siblings, I guess I should say. And yeah, they all get a love story, and there's only one more to come out, Sable Peak, and I'm very excited for that. I think it's coming out in December maybe. Like, I don't think we have to wait that long, and then it will be out and the series will be over, which will be so sad. But as well as that, I obviously, as I mentioned earlier, have been loving the Lark Cove series, also by Devney Perry. All of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited as well, so if you're okay, you girly, I just highly recommend, because all of her books are like 300 pages. They are so fast-paced, easy to fly through. Are they like the most deep and meaningful and intense stories ever? No, but they're all good. Like, I have never been disappointed by a Devney Perry book. They've all just been good. And so the Lark Cove series I am probably enjoying just as much as the Edens, and I highly recommend. So if you haven't read, as well as the Calamity Montana series, I feel like I'm enjoying Lark Cove better than Calamity, but they're all just so good. I just honestly love her books. They're just amazing. And then I wanted to give a quick shout out to The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, because as you can probably tell, most of my TBR, or most of the books I read, are romance books with a little sprinkle of fantasy, not a whole lot. Basically just the ACOTAR series and Fourth Wing are like my dipping my toes into the fantasy world. But I also don't read a lot of thrillers, and I don't know why, because I love them. Like, I absolutely frothed The Housemaid. So if you are looking for a thriller to read, it's giving Verity vibes but without the baby torture-y stuff, and it was just so good. I flew through it in like 24 hours. Absolutely loved it. 5-star, smashed. So yeah, I think that's everything today to talk about. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Check out Sarah's book video. I'll have it linked down below, which is where I got all my questions from. And let me know if you also do the book tag. Tag me in your video and I will come and watch as well. Feel free to answer these questions yourself in the comments. I would love to know other people's opinions on the books they've read this year. I love hearing people's favourite books, and yeah, I really hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about books. Again, I apologise that my voice is very nasally. It's honestly such a pain, but I feel great and I wanted to get this video up, so thank you for dealing with it. And thank you so much for all of the support on my channel always. It is so appreciated, and I just love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video, which will be very soon. Bye.